So my program was a combined honors major of theater and film and political science, but because of theater and film, obviously you're in humanities, and actually I much more enjoyed the theater and film as opposed to political science. My graduating year was 2007. My current occupation, the company I work for, my title is Marketing Communications Specialist, and that's for Factor E Design Initiative, and it's supposed to be a play on words like Factory. That's on Locke Street here in Hamilton, and essentially it's a full-service marketing studio. We do web design, we do graphic design, and we do marketing campaigns and strategies and overall creative strategies. So my role with the company is to look at essentially communication strategies from the kind of the big picture, the high-level view of what does it look like when you include media planning, what sort of messaging are we looking at in terms of a brand, so what would the tagline be, what's the brand theme and identity, and the qualitative background stuff behind the graphic design, as well as also just doing social media for the company itself, and also devising and looking at electronic and social media strategies for our clients. I think there's an incredible amount of links between the two. I mean, in terms of also my career path, my history kind of in careers ranges from working in the student union here on campus to working different and various organizations around the city related to youth retention and attraction. And that's kind of how I actually got introduced to the employers at Factory and started working with them, was because we were both at a young professional event together and we just started a conversation on social media. In terms of links, I mean, anything from writing, I'll do a lot of copywriting, or say, for example, the creation of a brand brief, and also just trying to think out the role of a brand. So if we're working with a client, the theater and film education really becomes important in terms of character creation, because when you're making a brand, you are essentially developing a story around a company or around an entity or an organization of some sort. So it's like you're crafting a character, you're telling a story about this company and about this brand. And both whether it's the technical side of writing and the actual grammatical necessity, or the creativity required to craft that story, those are very humanities focused links. As well as also just being able to picture big picture ideas. It's very humanities focused in terms of a disciplinary outcome of a humanities education. So those I think are some of the most prominent links that would be kind of existent in my job. I worked with the student union here at McMaster, and then coming from a humanities background, that was kind of like a crash course in business, which then led to a kind of an interest in business, and so I ended up doing a Master's of Business Administration here at McMaster as well too, and became interested in strategic marketing, but specifically from the communication side. And I would always really recommend any sort of business education to anyone of any background, but particularly to humanities, because I think humanities students understand people and understand the world in a very specific and round and depth-filled way. So when it came to doing that, the MBA, it was really focused on communication and on brand creation and on marketing, which then kind of led to an interest in communications and advertising, promotions, and marketing, which is a very creative and increasingly creative, actually, industry to be in. So doing the MBA and having that business education kind of focused what I potentially wanted to do in life, which is related to communications, and then eventually, through obviously networking and other channels, met the gentleman at Factory and was hired by them. So that was kind of serendipitous. In terms of the education and any further training that's required to perform the job, I would say the humanities is the most grounding portion of that education. So the creativity, the big picture thinking, the flexibility, especially with the theater and film education, and the improvisational abilities that kind of come with that. You really do find yourself using those on a daily basis. When it comes to the MBA, for example, that helps in terms of an organizational toolkit in your head to help you kind of drill down on the important facts. But at the end, it's the humanities that begins to create that world that you then shape things around. In terms of further training, within Factory Design Initiative, I I'm one of the few people there without almost a sort of discernible or tangible skill, in that a lot of the people working for Factory are either web developers or graphic designers. So in that sense, I mean, either of those would be fantastic skills or further training to have, just to be able to relate more to the day-to-day demands of the other staff and colleagues. And I mean, graphic design and multimedia, we actually have in-house a lot of graduates and people from the Humanities program at Mac, either working in either of those roles. We have fine arts graduates and communications and multimedia graduates working as graphic designers, and we also have history graduates working as programmers and developers. So it's really kind of diverse in terms of the skills and education you can have and where you can go with it. Parts I like best about the job, definitely the flexibility and the creativity. I think I've touched on the creativity a lot, but it really makes a huge difference in terms of the job, of having that sort of freedom to be able to think and being encouraged to think and create as part of your job. The research and the continuous reading that goes into the job, so always learning about industry developments in communication, whether that is a new social media platform or an advancement of a social media platform, whether that is looking at how various other brands have been communicated, or different unique advertising strategies and different sort of technologies that can be incorporated in. It's always very fun and exciting because you're always on the cusp, essentially, of communication. Internally, within the organization itself, it's also just a very fun company. We have a dog open office space, so fellow staff will bring in their dogs to work, and I keep a bag of dog treats, so I've become the dog whisperer of the office. As well, we do kind of project nights where we get together on Wednesday nights and just come into the office and work for the heck of it, just because we're working on something maybe fun. Fridays, we get beer bought for us in the office, and we just end off the week with a nice kind of relaxing afternoon, so it's a very fun place to work. Biggest challenges you'd face, I guess, first within the job and then within the industry. Within the job and the industry, I guess, just kind of crossing, is that it is very improvisational. So you really have to, it's all about proving. So you have to make sure that if you're going in a certain direction, you're researching it well enough and then proving its effectiveness well enough before you've actually done it. So you have to do that research and that sort of determine kind of outcome ahead of time before it's actually been done. So you really have to prove that if you're suggesting something, it's going to work. Whether it is a new advertising campaign in which you're looking at certain channels, you need to show that this channel is going to target this audience. In terms of the industry itself and pursuing a career, it's tying back to proving. It's very about proving, and it's very much about networking. It is a very kind of interesting industry in that you won't often find applications open online or on Monster or on things like that for an advertising company or for a communications firm. A lot of it has to do with who you know, fortunately or unfortunately. So I would say it is a problem, but it is something that you need to look into to begin to get into networking groups, young professional groups. Start up a blog, and if you're interested in communications, write about communications. You need to communicate yourself, so anything that you can do to prove to the online world that you're someone who's an expert in what you're talking about proves that you're someone that they want to know. A lot of this would come into, I think, some of the other things I've done as well too. So working with the student union and being involved in student government, and also being from the Hamilton area, I was really interested in youth retention and attraction strategies that exist across the country in terms of attracting skilled talent to a specific geographic region, which led to working with various groups in Hamilton, such as Workforce Planning Hamilton or the City of Hamilton, on devising strategies for the retention of youth in the Hamilton area. So that's one example, so getting involved with things at school and volunteer opportunities at school. Taking up experiential sort of industry-related contests or initiatives. Myself and a partner were involved in Canada's Next Top Ad Exec contest last year, and her, Kaylee Jameson, and I, we ended up winning it, which, when it comes down to what I was saying about proving things, Suddenly we had kind of, if we wanted to get into marketing and communication, we had just really significantly proved ourselves. And so it's the sort of thing where you just always have to say yes to things. And the more you say yes to things, whether that is volunteering, whether that is contests, whether it is student groups on campus, you have more experiences to talk about. And when you have these experiences, if you're in a job interview or if you're talking to a potential employer at some sort of event or networking event, you can say that you've done what they're looking for. And that puts you as someone that they potentially want to know. So guidelines for things that students can do now, that they can present to employers at a later date. Related to the last question and volunteerism, obviously getting involved with anything you possibly can, whether that's in the community or on campus. Always pursue other education. The difficulty with the humanities education is that it is something that does have some measure of difficulty translating to how you want to present yourself. And it's not difficulty in the education, it's a difficulty in essentially the student and the individual figuring out how they want to present themselves. So the more that you get involved in things, the more you begin to learn about yourself and the more you begin to learn about what you want to be involved with as a career. So in that sense, just getting involved with things, getting involved with groups in your community, getting involved with online initiatives, starting blogs, doing your own research to figure out what you're interested in. The education that you receive in humanities is what grounds you and what backs you up, but in the end it's the experiences that you've had that define your employability. I always think about something that when I was a Welcome Week rep for SOX, I remember a speaker who was at one of the Welcome Week rep trainings talking about basically just the experience of being on campus and volunteering and doing things on campus, and that basically anything you could possibly want to do to have an incredible university experience is here. It just needs you to take that step and to take that action. So related to what I was saying about if you're even mildly interested in something, get involved in it. And if you don't like it, then don't do it anymore. But either way, you've done it and you have that experience. So anything on campus, everything is here for you to get involved in and for you to learn about and for you to check out. So do that, because you never know when something that you've checked out sparks an interest in you that you never knew you had, and suddenly you've started your career path.